Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. We're going to get started here in just 1 second. If you haven't checked this out already, I just want to let you know, those of you showing up early and on time, that I put a post out today. It's one of my favorite posts to put out. It's basically saying, hey, I have 40,000 followers and connections. My network, right, in LinkedIn is 40,000 plus. And I want them to connect with you, right? So if you're interested in connecting with federal people in the federal market, go over to this post. And all sorts of people engage, and they put their name in, they put a comment in saying, I'm open to connecting. And it's a great way for you to build your connections, your network within the federal market by 50 or 100 people in a single day. It's a really good opportunity out there. And also, one of the things I mentioned within the post that I did was that coming to these trainings is another great way to network. I'm going to talk to you about Department of War's new acquisition transformation strategy and my initial thoughts on it. But in the chat are all sorts of people, and you can connect with each other, go offline, and keep in mind, some people you connect with, you're going to team up with on an opportunity, or you're going to build it even stronger and have a strategic relationship. Other people are just in your network, and we are all in each other's network, so that when we need to do an outreach, we can. Maybe I have somebody in my network who I'll never particularly work with, but maybe you connect with me, like you're reaching out to me saying, hey, Neil, would you introduce me to Sally here? And I make the connection. I get out of the way, and I'm like, hey, there you go. That's the value of a network. So don't just network with people who can give you something. That's always a bad idea just in life. But also keep in mind, networking isn't just about hey, we might eventually work together. You might be in cybersecurity at the really sophisticated level, and somebody else might be in facility toilet cleaning type thing. But if you're both targeting the same installation, for example, or command, then building relationships, those are the ways we network. Okay, I just want to say that out there because it is a really good chance for you to network as the government opens back up. So I'm going to dive into a topic that admittedly, I'm probably going to have to go into 2 or 3 times because there is so much meat in this. But I wanted to talk about how Department of Defense, which is now Department of War, how they buy in 2026. And my baseline for this guidance is going to come from a new acquisition transformation strategy document that came out from the Department of War's the Undersecretary of Acquisition and Sustainment, Michael Duffy, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this document came out, and it's a really important document for us to be paying attention to. But before we get to it, I just wanted to talk about like all these things that have been happening so far in 2025, where we have an administration comes in who's doing it differently than it's been done before. That's normal. You get a CEO of Ford Motor, and they're going to be a little different than the CEO before. And that's all the president of the United States is fundamentally from a business standpoint, is the CEO of the executive branch, right? But you got them coming in. You had Doge coming in, which was a whole big challenge to the way that we have been doing it, like it or love it, or not like it or love it, right? It was a challenge in there. That was different for the federal market than we had ever seen before. And then the government shut down for 40 plus days. So all these kind of hiccups happened, but in AI came out just full force in 2025, right? It had been introducing itself earlier, but 2025, it really came out full force. And so all these things are coming together to try to impact how we do business, whether they mean to or not, they are. But one of the things I wanted to communicate to you is that it isn't just the federal market that's being impacted. Sometimes we can look at this and go, oh my God, the federal market, it's this and this because of this and this. It's like, no. Things are happening across the entire globe. And we see it wherever we're at the most. And so if we're in the federal market almost exclusively, of course, we're going to see an impact here. But talk to the people who work at Intel or Microsoft, Amazon, UPS, or Salesforce, for example. All these companies are having massive layoffs. And so we look in the federal market, we're like, oh, there's a lot of layoffs. Yes, there are, and those are horrible, but they're happening everywhere, right? And they're not just happening at big organizations, they're happening at smaller organizations as AI puts itself in there. And so I just want you to keep this in mind that as much as there's all this change going on, the change is happening everywhere. And those of us who are going to be successful in sales will figure out how to make our path to success based on the new situation, the new information. And one of the biggest, most visible ones is the name of Department of Defense, right? The Department of Defense is now called the Department of War. And I'm not talking about anything in particular about rules and laws. I'm just saying it is, right? Originally, when I did these slides, I think I wrote Department of Defense is now Department of War, get over it. And then I thought, well, no, you jerk, that's a little too brutal. And so I wanted to put circle of concern. Stephen Covey introduced this idea of a circle of concern, and inside of it is a circle of influence. And circle of influence is what we can do about things. For example, I have the ability to show up here today. I can influence that. But I cannot at all influence the name of the Department of War and Department of Defense, right? So that's in my circle of concern. Or for me, it's actually in my circle that Stephen doesn't talk about, which is circle of why am I even thinking about it, right? Because I just want to sit there and make money in the federal market, same as you. Our job as government contractors is to speak the customer's language. And the Undersecretary of Acquisition and Sustainment for Department of War, Michael Duffy, he gave us the glossary. He put this out in his acquisition transformation strategy document, and it's really important that we track on this, that we understand it, right? And the last thing I want to just say is, if you haven't figured this out yet with our customer, the federal government, when generally a customer says jump, we say how high. But in this case, our job is to ask how high after we're already moving, right? They say jump, we should be jumping. Those of us who want to be a success, we should be jumping, and in the air say how high, and we'll adjust ourselves as we go along. Does that sound crazy? Sure, but it's no crazier than going off the edge of a cliff with an airplane that you hope flies and you build it in the air. That is kind of just our situation now. And those of us who can roll with that are going to have a lot of good success. I'm going to break up today's training, a lot of information. I'm going to try to shove it into 30 minutes here. And my goal actually is to give you enough that you go learn more about Michael Duffy's communications that are coming out, where they're going, and what the broader Department of War is saying. But I'm going to break up today's training into 4 sections. The first 2 are about the biggest shifts I see in there as communicated by the Department of War. The first one is their overarching outcomes that they're expecting. And these are the transformation. In sales, we're always trying to help the customer get to their transformation. And that's a really important thing. The second thing I'll talk about is strategic pillars. There's these 5 strategic pillars within this strategy document that are guiding where DOW is going. And so we should know where our customers are going so we can align to those. And so we'll talk about that. 3 and 4, I'm going to talk about not opportunities like in your pipeline, but where the new opportunities are going to emerge based on this document I'm reading and based on the information that's coming out. Where should you be looking? So I'll try to give you an intro to that, and I'll come back and do a lot more training as we go into 2026. And then I'll wrap up with how to position your company to better succeed based on the new changes that just come out. We need to adapt to our customers. And again, like I said, Michael Duffy is giving us that roadmap, and it's our job to read the roadmap. Okay, if you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce and founder of Call Plan AI. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner after I got out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. The process, A to Z, leads to repeatable, predictable results. This is what I want for you. This is why I show up day after day, and what I'm hoping you'll get some out of today's training. If you haven't connected with me, join 42,000 other people who are following me on LinkedIn because I provide good, solid government contracting content. And if you're on YouTube, etc., Twitter, come on over here. The other thing is, if you haven't subscribed to my newsletter yet, subscribe to the Government Contracting Success newsletter. I put out content in there that is designed to help you always as a government contractor. I noticed David Waltz is in here today from the Navy. He represents the Navy on the federal buying side. And one of my last newsletters was about his supplier portal. He's got a way to sign up and express interest in supporting his Naval Underwater or Undersea Warfare Center. David, that stuff, man, I got to get that name down. Okay, so I've got about 20 minutes to go through 4 slides. Let's see how well I can kind of stay on track. The first thing I want to talk about just though, as we move in, is how I see big shifts in particular coming from what they're describing as the overarching goals that they have or outcomes, right? So the transformation. So the first one is field technology and modernized systems at a rate that outpaces America's adversaries. that should be like communicating on its own what they're trying to do. It expresses the challenge this customer is having, the federal government, right? They're worried about America's adversaries hitting goals faster than us, whether they're cybersecurity goals, whether they're weapons goals, et cetera, AI goals. They want to prevent our adversaries from being ahead of America on outpacing us, right? And so this isn't just about weapons. If you look at this document, it talks a lot about weapons, but it also applies to every other part of the mission: IT, cyber, logistics, training, program support, sustainment, staffing, IT tools or AI tools that are coming out, and then just commercialized services. Department of War is saying we need capability faster than our adversaries can innovate. And this is good for small businesses because small businesses win here because we're already built for speed. I say this all the time. We are as nimble as a speedboat that we can turn on a dime compared to our large prime contracting peers who are more like cargo ships and take forever to turn. We don't have layers, right? We don't have committees. We don't have all these senior leaders that have to take 18 months to make a decision. We can make a decision right then and there. And if your company can help the government move faster, I would say that they're telling us you're now more strategically valuable than ever before. The second thing is increase production capacity and deliver wartime surge capacity. This isn't only the factory lines that are out there, right? It's capacity everywhere. More capacity for services, more capacity for cyber defense, more capacity for sustainment and O&M, more capacity for data, analytics, training, logistics, contracting support, all of these things that I know many of you do. Everything that keeps the mission moving, they need that. Department of War is basically saying to us, if you can scale people, process, tools, or technology, we need you. Every small business right now should be asking, how do we increase capacity? How do we show the government we can surge? This is what I've said in previous trainings about with Doge. How do we show them that we're tied to the essential services that are important to them? And then the last bullet here is put the entire acquisition system and the industrial base on wartime footing. And if you go in and read their documents and what they're saying about this, it basically is just move at the speed of urgency, the speed of relevancy, right? The speed of action. These are terms they're saying. And it's really important to understand because then you weave them right back into your own company. Wartime footing means urgency, speed, and reduced bureaucracy. So on the in time as well, right? Less time, or the inside, less time spent writing long documents, more use on the government side of commercial solutions, more direct to supplier buying, more OTAs and other faster rewarding processes, more willingness to take smart risks with small businesses. I've done this training before where I talked about a senior contracting officer, 20 years in DOW, 20 years in there, who wasn't really aware of how valuable small businesses were until one day something happened that just finally flipped the switch and he tried it. And he was in heaven about how unrisky, if that's the right word, it was to be working with small businesses. If you can help the government reduce friction, whether it's through automation, staffing, process simplification, cyber hardening, better data, then you're going to fit perfectly into this shift that Michael Duffy is talking about. The small businesses who show up early, communicate clearly, and reduce burden, they're going to be the go-to partners. And I want you to be the go-to partner for the Department of War. All right, second part that I wanted to talk about on the biggest shifts are on their 5 strategic pillars, right? And the first one is rebuild the defense industrial base, which I love, the DIB, right? This is the core of the strategy. And it's not just about factories. They want more companies delivering capacity and capabilities at any kind. So IT, I've said this lots of times, right? IT, cyber, logistics, training, professional services, supply chain help is huge, sustainment, and commercial software. If you can strengthen capacity, speed, resilience, or innovation in any part of the mission, you're part of rebuilding the DIB. You are the DIB, right? There's a reason we say small businesses are the backbone of America. In this particular case, if we take it right into DOW, small businesses are the backbone of the Department of War. Second bullet, elevate and empower the acquisition workforce. This is a big deal because as much as we sometimes feel like it's this little bit of an adversarial type approach, sellers to buyers. They're really trying to buy from us. And that's an important thing, but they often on the inside have their hands tied. And so this is massive for small businesses when the government is trying to really empower the acquisition workforce to do more on behalf of their internal customers. Department of War is giving program managers more authority. You're going to hear a lot about PEOs going to programs and tying in contracting officers, et cetera. They're giving them more flexibility and more speed out there, which means fewer layers between you and the people making those decisions. When program managers inside the federal agencies are empowered, they choose vendors who actually solve problems quickly. And this is that contracting officer I was talking about. He's like, wow, you guys can keep doing it. Maybe I come back. That's where small businesses align and shine with the Department of War. Next one is maximizing acquisition flexibility. And this is huge, right? Maximizing acquisition flexibility is really about giving the government more ways to buy from us. And you want that, right? They want to kill excess reviews, all that paperwork. You'll hear them talking about using OTAs more and CSOs, rapid paths instead of traditional FAR Part 15 type stuff. They want to push the decisions down so the program officers, and this is the fun part, they can move the money in the award faster. They also hold them more accountable, which is something that'll be an interesting side. They're telling them take more risks, but be more accountable. So it'll be an interesting thing to watch that. But from our side as small businesses, this means that if we can show up with clear commercial offers, be easy to contract with, easy to find, and fit into these flexible tools, then we're going to be able to be the ones who actually win these contracts as they go forward. We're going to be the flexibility that the government needs on the industry side. While they're being flexible on the inside with the acquisition team, we small businesses are the flexibility side of industry. The next one is developing high performance systems. And this is a big deal. And, when I look at this, it is huge. And you think about big weapon systems, a lot of stuff out there, right? But this pillar is talking about making everything the department buys, not just those weapons. And it makes everything perform at a higher level. High performance means better software, better data, better logistics. When we're doing that training, better sustainment, better cyber, better integration, better reliability, better across the board. Anything you're looking at, we need to go, how are we making it better, right? It's about using digital engineering for the government, AI, modeling that's out there, and faster integration that gets these capabilities, these prototyping. I actually was just having a call earlier today about it, but getting these capabilities that actually work into the field without years of delay. A while ago, Navy had, they still do, but Naval X. And I remember when Naval X was found by and it was led by the previous Navy head of acquisition, Hondo Gertz. But the whole goal was to be able to get those capabilities that you're building and you have working, getting them to the field faster. That's what those of us who were downrange, right? I was in the Army and the Rangers. When we're down there, we don't want to hear about all the bureaucracy. We want those solutions coming without years of delays. The time of the government being seen as a market where they move in birthdays, if you've ever heard that, we used to say that, is that the federal government moves in birthdays, meaning they make decisions over a course of years instead of a course of months or weeks or even days. So for small businesses, I would submit the message is pretty simple. If what you sell improves the speed, reliability, usability, integration, or mission effectiveness of the government, then you fit squarely inside of these pillars. The last one I want to just point out is improving the effectiveness or effective life cycle risk management. And this is a big deal for the government because it's the government admitting we can't afford fragile systems anymore. Lifestyle risk management means fixing the problem across the entire life of a system, not just buying it, right? And so they're specifically calling for better sustainment planning, more reliable repair and maintenance, stronger supply chain visibility. This is huge, and you'll hear everybody talking about it. Reducing single points of failure, which frankly, you should be thinking about internally as well. Better data reliance and designing systems that can be maintained cost effectively. I learned this a long time ago in government contracting when I was trying to sell something to somebody and they said, you keep telling me the price. I need to know the cost. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's $1.5 million. He goes, no, $1.5 million is for that piece of machinery you're giving me. but how much does it cost me every year to put ink in there or film if we're taking pictures? And I started becoming aware of the fact that I wasn't selling them the long-term supply chain of that product they were buying. And so it's really important that they understand the cost effectiveness. I also was talking to somebody yesterday in Call Plan AI, and she was talking about they do water intrusion protection. And they were talking about somebody in the Navy was describing a water problem with elevators. At the bottom of the elevator in the pit, there's this water accumulating, seeping in. And what I was telling her is it's not just about the water. What does that water do to the elevator maintenance, the operation of maintenance year after year? And what does it do to shrinking the life of how long that elevator lasts before you have to replace it? And so that long-term cost is really important for us to remember. And that's what DOW is trying to communicate to us in that particular area about improving effectiveness. Okay, so here, and I know I got a lot of stuff in here. You can come back and look at this. I am going to keep trying to work through more of this training because it's really important we understand our customers, and our customer has changed. I did want to pause for a second and thank our sponsor, Voltron. Voltron does AI-powered proposal writing, taking you from finding the solicitation to writing an early draft within minutes instead of weeks. And this is a vitally important thing for those of us as we try to compete at that speed that the Department of War is saying. So at the very least, do me a favor and throw a thank you into the chat or the comments saying, thank you, Voltron. It's just a simple way of saying thanks for sponsoring. If you're writing 4 proposals or more a month, you should check them out, get a demo. Okay, 8 minutes left, 2 slides, or well, 3 slides, but 2 slides that are big. So here I just wanted to briefly talk about where opportunities are, or where we should be looking for opportunities as small businesses based on what's coming out. And so the first one is related to that direct to supplier buying. Direct to supplier buying, it expands, right? And what I meant by this bullet is that the government is trying to get rid of the middleman. And not totally the middleman theory if you're tracking on that. I just mean the middleman in general. And this is really important for those of you who are manufacturers, putting out your own parts, et cetera. The government is trying to go straight to you and ask themselves, well, why do we have anybody in the middle who all they're doing is getting a quote and passing it, right? And so that's a good opportunity for this. That's a new opportunity for us. The second thing is that commercial technology becomes the default. What they're trying to do, there used to be this line, I can't remember what it was called, but I think it was, buy before you build. And so, excuse me, my last company, I did software development. And in software development, we would build stuff from the scratch. And they're saying, well, why buy stuff? Why pay for you to come in and build it? If somebody has already built it, we can just buy it. And so that's where you want to be tracking on that. Also, the way they're buying, I put CSOs and OTAs in here, and then COTS, right? Commercial off shelf. You want to explore these and figure out how is your company going to be able to serve your customer and reach your customer faster through these CSOs that are dropping, OTAs and COTS, right? And if you don't know what those are, those should be assigned to you that you need to do that research and understand it. And then go back to your ideal customers and say, hey, Navy, hey, Army, what are you doing related to CSOs, et cetera, right? The third thing is that more new entrants are wanted. Even though there's 350,000 plus small businesses within DSBS, which is basically the available small businesses to the government, they see the DIB as a lot smaller. In fact, they see the defense industrial base as just people who have won prime contracts, but it is much larger. They go back and forth between seeing it small and seeing it big. But the supply base are the ones who've won primes that are in the DOW as well as the subcontractors. And then those of us registered in SAM, just because we're not in DOW doesn't mean we don't want to be, right? But they also want to expand out even further and really welcome more businesses coming in. Bring work that is being done OCONUS into CONUS, so they're done by American manufacturers. And this is new, right? This is huge. There's new opportunities perhaps for you to pursue federal work. The fourth one, supply chain fix requires thousands of new vendors. They recognize that supply chain is a national security issue within the Department of War, right? Or within the federal government in general. They recognize this. If you just paid attention during COVID, and as COVID began wrapping out and we started seeing where our supplies were coming from, and we look at all our technology, et cetera, where it's being made, well, there is this idea of bringing it in into America, but there's also this idea of how are we reaching and how are we growing our supply base? That's an opportunity for many of you. And the last one here is rapid prototyping and solutioning or solution marketplaces. There's a lot to go in here, but this idea going back to OTAs, for example, or CSOs, the SIBR program, if you're familiar with that, it's a little bit on hold, but it'll come back. This whole idea of innovating and getting products into the field much faster so that it can be tested. But there's also these solution marketplaces, and I'll do a whole separate training on that. But these places, if you've got finished solutions, you can get them vetted in there, and then they've been vetted by one agency, one buyer. Now it's made available to every other buyer saying, hey, this has been vetted by somebody in another agency, and you all can have access to it. Price and the product have been negotiated. Those are opportunities. Those are things I want you to go to explore, right? Today's training is not about giving you the final answer on that. It's about opening these all up to you for you to go explore more. All right, the last thing I want to do, and I just got a few minutes left, is how to position yourself and your company out there. I talked about the transformation, right? That they want those 3 transformative statements. And then the 5 pillars. Tie yourself to those. Figure out which one do you align with most. Me, for example, I align holistically with growing the dip, not the other 4 pillars. I just don't even casually align to the others. I align to growing the dip. So anything I do is going to be speaking to that. And that's okay. I don't need to sit there and align to all 4 or all 5, and neither do you. Figure out where you align. It's okay if you're aligned to 2. It's not okay if you align to 3, because in my opinion, that means you're doing too much. And even Booz Allen might not have aligned to all 3. The next one is lead with commercial, not custom. And this means when you're going in and talking to the customer, talk about how we've already got something pre-built. I was talking to a customer who's building an AI tool around their internal processes. I said, as soon as you're done, take that and go demo that and say, hey, we've already built this. It's 80% of the way for you to do it. It has to be 20% configured for your internal business need, but the underlying tool and process is built already. Well, that's leading with a commercial idea, not, hey, we can build from scratch a new solution. Third one is show speed and risk reduction. Speak to the idea that they need to reduce risk for sure, but they need to move at the speed of action that keeps them ahead of our adversaries. And if you talk in that way, you will be able to move much, much faster, right? What can you get done in the next day, in the next week, in the next month? Not the next year, right? If you look that far out, then you're not moving at speed. Fourth one, fit into an open modular interoperable system. This is coming out of that document. Fit into open modular interoperable system. What this means by this is open means a lot of people can use that technology and to combine it, right? Modular, though, is pieces. That used to be one of my favorite things to do. Is I'm doing that with Call Plan AI. I have this big system in mind, but it actually is little teeny apps that are all being plugged on together, and they're not actually even needing a core. They each kind of act like their own core. And so to me, that's modular, and interoperable means don't build us something that's just going to conflict with what we already have. So that is very important, especially for those of you who are innovators out there and you bring in new ideas, et cetera. Make sure you understand what they have and how what you have is going to fit in nicely. And then the last thing you can do to position yourself better is demonstrate how you strengthen the supply chain. You know, if you can come in there and really help them with one of their biggest challenges, then they're going to be open to listening to you. And then your idea is the thing that has got to sell them for more meetings and potentially a contract, et cetera. But it starts with you even demonstrating an understanding of what's important to them. Here's what I want you to remember, because there's so much in here. First off, go watch the replay. Second off, go download the document I was talking about, or you can watch. I'll put it out pretty soon. But download that document as a reference. But here's what I want you to remember as it relates to this, right? There's this great line out there when you look at the Department of War and what's going on in there. Some people make it happen, some people watch it happen, and some people say, what happened? If you pay attention to what Michael Duffy put out here in the acquisition transformation strategy, then you can be part of the people who are making it happen. You're not going to watch it happen, and you're not going to wonder what the heck happened. You're going to make it happen. And that's how you succeed as you go forward in government contracting. I did want to just say, as we wrap up, we got 1 minute left. If you're trying to grow within the federal market, especially around starting and building relationships, come check out Call Plan AI. I'm still in the early phases of building this out, but you get access to me as I help you have more successful meetings with federal buyers and teammates that lead to your success. All right, just remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is ending on time. I am, so I'm out of here. Have a great day.